Hi, Holger. It's good to have you here all the way from Albania. You've come.
Nice to find you here.
You found me in my home. How did you find me?
In this lounge.
So, Albania and Kosovo. A long history there in that country. As far as, let me ask you this, Holger. Why are you involved in the way of Christ and his apostles? Why are you involved in these patterns of Acts? What did it look like for you in the beginning? How were you introduced to this? Let's start there. How were you introduced to this?
Well, I came to faith in the very first days that Albania opened to the gospel. If you know anything about Albania, it belonged to the Eastern Bloc countries, the most closed country in the world. There was no religion at all during communism time. We had it written into the Albanian constitution that we are an atheistic country. There's no God. God doesn't exist. So when communism crumbled and fell all over the Eastern Bloc, Albania was the last country to fall. There was a window of opportunity for 40 days. Now I know what really happened because people have told me the story, that the leader opened the country for mission organizations and church workers to come and bring religion back into the country.
When was this? What?
That was in the summer of 91.
Summer of 1991.
Yeah, 1991. And I first heard the gospel into a big open-air meeting. I was taking a walk, see a big crowd. I hear someone speak English. Because of the English, I stopped and started listening to him. It was an open-air preaching. I even remember the message.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was from the sower of the seed and the four different types of land. So, as I was listening to that person, he was being translated into Albanian. There was a big crowd. I saw some foreigner at the time. You could see them easily. He was filming what was happening with a small camera. And in his left hand, he had a Bible. Somewhere I had read that the Bible is the most read book in the world. And I say to him, "Do you have a Bible for me?" He says, "This is my personal Bible. We've given out Bible to people, but I ran out of them. I've got a Bible for you in my hotel room. But you listen to that man and what he's saying, he says, and then after that, we'll go and get you a Bible." I wasn't listening anymore. All I wanted was, "Why don't you shut up?" And I go and get that Bible. So, to make the long story short, I become a believer, not because of that day, but I get introduced to the first missionary that came into my town in Korcha that day. So that team left, and as we were walking down to the place where the bus was, they meet a missionary who had been in Kosovo for a couple of years, an Englishman, studying Albanian, so that when Albania opened, they had the language and get into the country. Albania opened too soon for them, so they left the studies and just came into the country. So because of the talks that I had within reading my Bible that I got from that person, I had many questions. This guy had learned Albanian, but he had learned Kosovar Albanian, which is the northern dialect. He was not very well understood in the south, which is where I live in. So he asked me if I could translate for him.
Okay.
So in a way, I was reading my Bible. I was having questions. I was too proud to ask him, but other people were making the same questions that I had. So I was getting answers many, many times, in a way. Later, in my faith life, there was a church plant that was started out of the big city, some 8 miles north of our city. And from what I had learned at the time, I started leading that small group of teenagers that wanted to study the Bible. And it's like I got introduced to all these ideas back in 94, 95. There was an American missionary that had come, sent by his church, and I think he had only gone through the first two binders, Acts and the Pauline letters, and he had come into the country. And of course, he was trying to share the ideas with me, asking me, how do you translate this, as he was learning the Albanian language. And that's when I got first introduced. I noticed that his questions were not like, or the talks that we had were not like the talks that I had with other missionaries. And in 90, but I didn't know anything about the material. He was just sharing ideas with me. Back in 97, we had a big crisis. Ponzi schemes.
Before you move on, what was different about his talks than other missionaries?
Well, I was doing Christian work into that church plant, and I was like, well, I'll give them what I know. But then, where do I take them for later? Is there a pathway that I need to follow? Is there a plan that I need to have? There's new people coming. I can't tell them, wait a minute till I finish with them, then I start with you. So the group grew. It meant more work for me. And it started to become difficult. Talking about the idea of multiplication, at the time I was thinking only getting the church or the group bigger in numbers. Multiplication is like, then I have to split into different directions. But talking about what we read in the Bible and in the Acts, I could see as well that we were in a sort of way in the Acts. We were living the Acts times back in the 1990s.
You were living the book of Acts. What a
But I couldn't see what I saw in the Bible. We were living the times, but you couldn't see the growth, the churches multiplying, the leadership developed, the churches established. So back in 96, 97, you could see that explosion because of Albania being closed and that big opportunity for them to learn about God started to close. That window of opportunity started to close. Materialism crept in. The Albanians started moving out of Albania for a better life. So if there was hopelessness in the very first days, and they raised their eyes towards God, we can't do anything. Now they thought they could do anything with the opportunities that were being opened. I can be the Lord of my life. So
pick us up.
97.
Okay.
The Ponzi scheme crisis. All Albania is up in arms. Up to the time, we've seen the privatization of many state properties, but the Albanians wanted to privatize the army as well. So they attacked and looted the army depots, and because of the Ponzi scheme crisis, there was anarchy everywhere. This missionary, him and his wife were expecting a baby. They moved out of Korça to have the baby delivered in Greece, and they couldn't come because of the crisis and the anarchy. I was just married a couple of months at that time, living with my parents, and he says, "Why don't you go into my home so there's someone living there and it doesn't get looted? If there's no one there, of course it will get looted." And I go into his office and I see some big binders, started reading them. And I didn't know what they were, but something resonated with me. It's like reading from the acts, the leadership. Couldn't understand everything, but I saw this was very different from the books that I've read at that time, borrowing them from different missionaries, anything that I could lay hands on. So we started working after that crisis. We started working through the materials, and I found myself having more answers to the questions, because what was happening during my growth as a Christian and as a Christian worker, reading different books, some book here, some book there, some author here, some author there, I ended up with more questions than answers. Reading and studying the material together with this missionary friend of mine and a handful of other leaders in the Korça area, I saw the comprehensiveness of all the way that they treated the different issues. It wasn't just a fragment here, a fragment there. You could see, I often say, it was like we were trying to put pieces of the puzzle together, but it is very difficult to put pieces of the puzzle if you don't have the template or the box. So it's like I got provided with the template. And it made a lot of sense, and the work a lot easier for me. And my personal study as well. So at the time I was looking at the church, the growth had stopped and the church was plateauing. There was no growth. Apathy has crept in. Remember watching a video from the very first days of those open-air meetings. People in hundreds and thousands professing Christ. And then 6 years later, not many of them. And as I was watching that, it was in a conference, that video, I was full of tears. And a friend of mine says, "Aren't you happy that you see so many people getting saved?" So I said, "Yes, I am. But what if we had the churches back then? Because many of them were left as orphans. They got saved, but they didn't get into the churches. There were no churches in Albania. Some, of course, there were churches that got started, but the poor missionaries ended up having to do everything themselves because there was nothing on the national and from the nationals. So, yeah, he was a missionary, he was a pastor, he was an administrator, he was a teacher in a way, as well as you could see different organizations. We do only evangelism, we do only training of leaders, and it's like, I don't see this in the Bible. It's like, and sort of inner fighting between the different organizations or mission agencies or churches. I remember the very first debate was that I heard between two missionaries coming from different backgrounds. One speaking about Jesus, and we follow Jesus, and the other say, "But you've got Paul as well, and the other apostles." And it's like trying to wrap my mind about whatever was being discussed. Couldn't see why this big discussion at that time. But then you could see that some of the fragmentation is because of the way that we've been doing the work. And when you read about the last prayer, the priestly prayer of Jesus, it says, "I pray that they be one." And we are 100 million and one. How is it possible? He's given us a mission. He's given us a job. And we run around thinking we are doing this. We are building his kingdom. But in fact, we are, in a way, building our own fiefdoms. It's like little princes. This is my ministry, this is my church, this is my organization. Little flags. And that's not to his glory.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So how do you're mentioning the John 17 prayer, I think, right?
Yeah.
And it's like the Ephesians 1 and Ephesians 3 prayers about that we'd be able to comprehend with all the saints the full breadth and length and height and depth of what Christ is doing. We'd be able to comprehend that we're all together, that we're all doing the same thing. There's a deposit that's left for us to build his church as a family.
Mm-hmm.
We're to be mothers and fathers to those people. We're supposed to develop our leaders. We're supposed to develop all people in their life work. And all of us are supposed to be part of more and more churches that are functioning as family, to give people meaning and purpose. But yet, like you said, the whole Christendom pattern is religious events, religious services.
Well, it's a big show.
It's a big show.
Show must go on.
The show must go on.
There's been a song. There's been a song.
There is
I remember from my youth days.
Yeah, there is a show. There is a show.
yeah, that's how I felt. It's like you go week after week and you maintain a show. It's like even the setting of the churches, it's like watching the old guys trying to sing translated American songs. There was no heart in that. Even the worship songs, because we didn't have Christian literature, we didn't have Christian practices, we didn't have worship music, so we had to translate. And of course, there were Albanian artists in the church that started writing music, but I still see mostly stuff coming from the West. With all the best that you got into Albania, and I say you, I mean the West, we got even some of the worst. Some of the problems are imported. We don't have them, but the West brought them. All the bickering and the small splitting hair.
All the denominationalism is, think, what you're speaking towards. Right? Of the way we baptize, or the way we believe about the.
And the thing is that we end up not being gracious about that's another way, that's another method that you can do things, but we sort of become like enemies. Me and you, us and them. And it's like the priestly prayer is not not there.
So why would you say, in as a final question, you've dedicated a lot of your life to these patterns that you are convicted of in Acts, the whole New Testament.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But you've and in the face of a lot of Western patterns of Christianity that's been imported into Albania, you, over all this time, you've continued to remain convicted that you have a role to play in bringing these patterns to people that you live amongst, and even be part of a wider global movement of the way of Christ and his apostles. Why are you involved even at a larger why have you sum up for us why you're convicted of this, and sum up why you're doing this beyond your own sphere, even your own country?
It's been really, really hard, because sometimes with all the ideas and trying to explain the way of Christ and the apostles to other Christian workers, pastors and missionaries, they can't see it, and it's like, is he a heretic? It's like, and it hurts. But I'm convinced that this is the way I should walk in and follow, because I see that in the scripture, and I'm involved with other people that have the same mind, because I know it's too great a job for one person. It's too great a job for one church or organization. It's too great a job even for a network of churches. You need a global networks if you want to really influence the whole world and all the different civilizations. You really need that Christ prayed for us.
Love your passion, Holger. Love you have a calling on your life. And collectively, we have a calling on our lives to be faithful to this stewardship. One final comment of gratefulness to you. The couple that you're speaking of, I believe, that had a baby in Greece, or had a baby in Albania, then they had to move to Greece and then tried to come back to Albania.
Yeah.
She got married here recently in the last year or two, yes?
Yep.
That baby got married.
Yep.
And that couple is now in our church network here. And that woman, that girl that was born then, is teaching my daughter the first principles of the faith.
Yeah, let's keep it going. Generation after generation, till he comes.
Until he comes. So
for his glory, for his kingdom. And it's a great joy to see when you look back and see, because with all the struggles of the Christian ministry and all the problems and difficult situations, sometimes you lose sight of these blessings. But when you look back and you see the fruits, it's not in vain. The work of the Lord done his way.
Yeah, that's right. Because I'm benefiting from your work, and you didn't plan on that, but it's happening.